The last video I put up yesterday is no longer up. So I'm going to try to make this one short and sweet. You know what I think? I think instead of leaving the doors open to these churches, these big buildings with big mortgages that have become businesses and social clubs, instead of leaving the doors open for people to come in, which people who are in their sin and ashamed of their sin and struggling with their sin, it's almost impossible to scrounge up enough courage to go into a building that we call church, these big buildings. It's very rare that somebody does that because it's a scary thing to do, especially when you're struggling. I know there's been many times I didn't go into churches because I was just too ashamed. But I think that this is the blueprint of church, the first 300 years of church. I think we should close them doors and meet up at people's houses. And in doing so, we would create a minefield of churches. And the money we save on them buildings and upkeep on the buildings and all this and that, well, that could be used to actually make a difference. So anyway, this is just one man's thoughts. It's something that, it's actually my calling. Because when I worked at that church for a year and God showed me constantly, look, this is wrong. This ain't right. It ain't supposed to be this way. It's my calling. God's called me to go up against the church. And he made it clear when I read 1 Samuel. When David, who was ruddy, which is red, which has been my name my whole life, red, when he went into Saul's room to serve Saul. That's what God had me do. Go in there to serve the Pharisee that was actually the preacher at that church. And God showed me what was wrong. And there's a lot of things wrong with the churches today. The churches today. And I believe what God is doing right now is using people like me to encourage the Davids out there. And maybe try to get back to the blueprint of church. And in doing so, if we meet up at people's houses, it would create a minefield of churches and all the extra money we would have to help the needy, help the addicted, help the lost, help the homeless, help the hungry. I think our money would be better spent actually helping the hungry instead of being funneled through a business of church or used to pay the mortgage on a church or even pay a pastor. I personally don't think pastors should get paid. I think you take money out of the equation and you'll know who the real ones are real quick. Anyway, if you don't know Jesus Christ as your personal Lord and Savior today, make today be the day. You don't need me. You don't need a priest. You don't need a preacher. You can go directly to him. That's what Jesus Christ did. He bridged the gap back to God. That bridge that sin destroyed, Jesus built it back. So you can go directly to God. In essence, you can go back to the Garden of Eden. The one we were kicked out of. You can go back to the Garden of Eden through Jesus Christ and walk directly with God. And I hope this message helps you.